The moment I realized I had been catfished, I wasn't looking at my phone. I was looking at a package sitting outside my apartment door that I never ordered. There was no shipping label, just my apartment number written in black marker. I almost left it there. I wish I had. A few months earlier, I downloaded a dating app because everyone kept telling me I needed to put myself back out there. I wasn't expecting much. Most conversations lasted a day before one of us stopped replying. Then I matched with someone who actually seemed normal. The profile wasn't flashy. The photos looked like they were taken by friends instead of professionally staged. The conversations felt easy. We joked about terrible movies, complained about work, and talked almost every evening. One thing stood out. They never wanted to meet right away. "I've rushed into meeting people before," they messaged one night. "I'd rather get to know someone first." Honestly, I respected that. After about a week, they suggested video calls. The first one lasted 10 minutes. The lighting was dim. The camera kept freezing. Every few seconds, the picture would stutter. "I've got terrible internet," they laughed. I believed it. Over the next 3 weeks, we video called almost every night. Sometimes while I cooked dinner, sometimes while I folded laundry, sometimes while I walked from my car to my apartment. They always asked casual questions. "What floor do you live on? Do you always park in the same spot? What time do you usually get home?" At the time, it felt like ordinary conversation. Looking back, every question had a purpose. Whenever I asked similar questions, the answers stayed vague. "What about you?" "Oh, I move around a lot for work." "What kind of work?" "Nothing interesting." I never pushed. One night they asked if we could leave the video call running while we both watched the same movie, and it sounded kind of cute. For 2 hours, my phone sat on the coffee table with the camera pointed into my apartment. Sometimes we'd laugh. Sometimes neither of us spoke. Afterward, they said something strange. "You've got a cozy place." I smiled. "Thanks." Then they added, "You should really lock that kitchen window." I froze. I always do. "No, I mean the little one above the sink." I looked over. It wasn't fully closed. Maybe I had forgotten. I walked over and locked it. "You've got good eyes," I joked. "Just noticed when you walked by." That explanation made sense. Or at least it did then. A few days later, they suggested meeting in person. Finally, they offered to drive to me. I said no. I'd rather meet somewhere public. They agreed immediately. No argument, no pressure. We picked a busy restaurant for Saturday afternoon. Friday evening, they canceled. Emergency at work. They sounded genuinely apologetic. Instead, we talked on video for nearly an hour. The next morning, I left for work. As I locked my apartment door, I noticed something lying against the wall. A small cardboard box. No shipping company. No return address. Just my apartment number. Inside was a cheap coffee mug, plain white, nothing special. Until I turned it around. Printed on the side was a screenshot from one of our video calls. Me, standing in my own kitchen, looking into the refrigerator. I had no memory of that moment. It wasn't a selfie. It wasn't something I had taken. Someone had captured it during the call. At first, I assumed they were trying to be funny. I messaged them immediately. "Did you make this?" No reply. I called, straight to voicemail. The dating app showed the account had been deleted. Every message was gone. Every photo. Everything. I felt sick. I contacted customer support. They confirmed the account no longer existed, but couldn't tell me anything else. I told myself someone had played a stupid prank. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The screenshot wasn't taken from my phone. It was taken from behind me. You could see the back of my head. You could see my phone sitting on the counter. The angle was impossible. It looked like someone had been standing inside my apartment while I was on the video call. I spent the next hour convincing myself it had to be edited. It had to be. There was no other explanation. Then I remembered something. The kitchen window. The one they somehow noticed wasn't locked. I walked over to it. The window opened onto the building's narrow maintenance walkway. Residents weren't allowed there. Maintenance workers only. I looked outside. There were fresh, muddy shoe prints on the metal walkway. They stopped directly beneath my kitchen window. I stood there staring at those muddy footprints until I heard a neighbor come up the stairs. I slammed the window shut. I didn't know what I was afraid of, but I suddenly didn't want anyone seeing me looking outside. The first thing I did was call the building manager. He unlocked the maintenance door and checked the walkway with me. The prints were still there. He frowned. Nobody was scheduled to be out here this week. He called the maintenance company while I watched. No one had been assigned to the building. The manager suggested calling the police. When the officer arrived, I felt ridiculous explaining everything. A dating app? Video calls? A coffee mug? The more I talked, the more I thought it sounded like paranoia. But the officer didn't laugh. He carefully photographed the mug and the footprints before asking to see my apartment. Nothing looked out of place. Nothing had been stolen. Still, he asked a question that caught me off guard. Have you ever left your phone alone during the calls? I nodded. Sometimes I'd go grab food or use the bathroom. He looked around my living room. So whoever you were talking to would have known exactly when you weren't looking. That sentence stayed with me. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I bought a small security camera and pointed it toward my front door. Another one faced the kitchen window. I kept telling myself I was overreacting. 3 quiet days passed. Then the notifications started. The front door camera detected movement at 2:14 a.m. By the time I opened the live feed, no one was there. Just an empty hallway. The next night, it happened again. 2:16 a.m. movement. Nobody visible. The third night, I watched the live feed before the notification even appeared. Nothing. Then the motion alert sounded anyway. I replayed the recording. At first, I didn't notice anything. Then I slowed it down. A shadow crossed the peephole from the outside. Someone had covered it with their hand. They weren't trying to get in. They were making sure I couldn't see out. The police increased patrols around the building, but they never found anyone. I tried convincing myself it was unrelated. Until my phone rang from an unknown number. I answered without thinking. Nobody spoke. I was about to hang up when I heard something. A television. I recognized the commercial instantly. It was the exact one playing in my apartment. Someone was listening through my own phone. I disconnected and powered it off. The officer later explained that certain video call apps could keep microphone permissions active longer than people realized if the settings weren't changed. Nothing illegal had been proven, nothing they could arrest someone for. I deleted every app connected to that account, changed my passwords, bought a new phone. 2 weeks passed without another incident. I finally started breathing normally again. Then I received an email. No subject, one attachment, a photograph. It showed me leaving work that afternoon. Taken from across the street. I immediately drove to the police station instead of going home. The detective looked exhausted when he saw the picture. He asked one question. Did you tell anyone where you work? I never said it. He nodded slowly. You didn't have to. He opened one of the screenshots recovered from my dating app account. During one of our video calls, I had answered a work call. My employee ID had been hanging around my neck. The company logo was perfectly visible. Another screenshot showed my parking permit hanging from my rearview mirror. Another captured the reflection of my apartment building in my glasses. Every image gave away another piece of my life. None of it had seemed important. By itself, it wasn't. Together, it was everything. The investigation eventually uncovered something unexpected. The person behind the profile wasn't looking for relationships. They weren't even targeting me specifically. They joined dating apps to collect information. The conversations were rehearsed, the compliments, the jokes, the awkward video calls. Everything had one purpose, getting people comfortable enough to reveal their routines without realizing it. The detective told me they'd found several fake accounts connected to the same pattern. Different faces, different voices, the same questions, the same disappearing profiles. Months later, I moved. New apartment, new job, new phone number. I never used another dating app. I thought it was finally over. Then one evening, a coworker walked into the break room holding a phone. "Hey," they asked, "is this you?" On the screen was a dating profile. The photos were mine. Every single one had come from those video calls. The profile claimed to be looking for a serious relationship. The bio sounded friendly, normal, trustworthy. I reported it immediately. The account disappeared within hours. I thought that would be the end of it. A week later, I received a message request on social media from someone I'd never met. It contained only one sentence. "I think the person I'm talking to is pretending to be you." Attached was a screenshot. It showed my profile, asking them for one small favor before meeting. "Would you mind turning on your camera for just a minute? I just want to make sure you're real." I stared at those words for a long time. Because that's exactly how it had started with me. Not with threats, not with lies anyone would question. Just one harmless video call, one ordinary conversation, one person asking for proof that I was real. Now, whenever someone tells me catfishing is just fake dating profiles, I don't argue. Because sometimes the fake profile isn't trying to steal your heart. It's trying to learn your life. The first thing the detective asked me was why I kept sending pictures to someone I'd never met. I didn't have a good answer then. I barely have one now. This happened a little over a year ago, and I'm only writing about it because I still catch myself checking reflections in store windows to see if anyone is behind me. After a rough breakup, I downloaded a dating app. I wasn't looking for anything serious. I just wanted to talk to someone who didn't already know every embarrassing detail about my life. A few days later, I matched with someone named Ryan. His profile looked normal. Not perfect, no shirtless gym pictures, no luxury cars, just photos hiking, drinking coffee, walking a dog that wasn't even his. He joked in his bio that he borrowed his sister's golden retriever because everyone swipes right on dogs. It made me laugh. We talked for almost 2 weeks before either of us mentioned meeting. He never pushed. He remembered little things I'd told him. He'd ask how work went or whether my headache had gotten better. Nothing about him felt fake. One evening, he said something that actually made sense. "I've been catfished before," he wrote. "Would you mind proving you're real before we meet?" I laughed. "How?" "Just send me a selfie doing something random. Hold today's receipt or something." I rolled my eyes, but I did it. I snapped a picture outside a grocery store holding my receipt. He immediately sent one back doing the same thing. It seemed harmless. Over the next week, it became almost a joke between us. Coffee verification. Monday verification. Rainy day verification. Every time, he'd send one too. Looking back, I noticed something strange. His photos were always cropped tightly. Mine showed everything around me. The street, the storefronts, my office building, the parking lot, the apartment entrance behind me. At the time, I didn't think twice. People post pictures online every day. One Friday, he suggested meeting the following weekend. "I know this little cafe downtown," he said. "I'll text you the address." The place looked nice online. Hundreds of reviews, warm lighting, homemade pastries. I even checked Street View. Everything looked legitimate. Saturday afternoon, I drove there. As soon as I reached the address, my stomach dropped. The building was empty, windows covered with brown paper. A faded "For Lease" sign hung crooked in the glass. No cafe, no customers. Nothing. I checked my phone, no new messages. I texted him, no response. I called, straight to voicemail. I figured someone had made a mistake listing the business online. Embarrassing. I turned around to head back toward my car. That's when I noticed a man sitting on a bench across the street. He wasn't staring directly at me. He was looking down at his phone. Then he'd glance up, then back down. I walked past him. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps. Not close, just close enough. I crossed the street. He crossed too. Maybe coincidence. I turned into a crowded pharmacy. He didn't. Instead, he stopped outside and pretended to make a phone call. I stayed inside almost 15 minutes. When I finally left, he was gone. I convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. The next morning, my dating app account had disappeared. Ryan's profile no longer existed. I reported it and moved on, or at least I tried to. 3 days later, I opened my mailbox. Inside was a plain white envelope, no stamp, no address, just my name. Inside were 6 printed photographs. Every single one was a picture I had sent Ryan. Except they weren't cropped. Someone had zoomed out. Someone had been standing behind me every time. In one photo, there was a man reflected in the grocery store window. In another, someone sat inside a parked truck across the street. In another, a figure stood near the entrance to my apartment complex, too far away for me to notice, close enough to photograph me. I called the police immediately. The detective asked if I'd told anyone where I lived. No. Did you ever share your location? No. He spread the pictures across the table. You didn't have to. He pointed at my grocery receipt. The store location was printed across the top. Then my office selfie, the company logo on the window. Then my apartment picture. A tiny reflection showed my building number. One picture captured the keypad beside the entrance. The numbers weren't visible. The wear marks on the buttons were. Someone had narrowed the code down from that. The detective asked to see every message. As investigators went through them, they found something I'd completely missed. Ryan never asked where I was. He asked questions that encouraged me to reveal it myself. Beautiful day. Are you walking today? That coffee shop looks familiar. Show me the view. I love old buildings. Everything sounded casual. Everything collected information. Weeks later, they finally identified the profile photos. The real man lived 3 states away. His pictures had been stolen from social media months earlier. He had no idea. The fake cafe listing had been created only 2 days before our planned meeting. It was deleted that same night. The detective believed whoever ran the account wanted to see whether I'd show up alone. If I had walked behind the abandoned building instead of toward my car. I don't like thinking about what might have happened. The investigation never found the person behind the account, but they did recover files from a cloud storage account linked to one of the fake email addresses. There were folders, dozens of them. Each folder was named after a first name. Inside were screenshots, photos, maps, parking habits, favorite restaurants, running routes, everything collected from ordinary conversations. Mine wasn't even the largest folder. The detective told me something before I left the station. It wasn't personal. He meant it to comfort me. It didn't. Months later, I changed apartments, changed jobs, deleted every social media account, started over. Last month, an old coworker called me. She asked if I'd ever heard of a dating profile using my pictures. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Someone had stolen every photo I'd ever sent Ryan. Now my face was being used to convince strangers that I was real. The same way someone convinced me. Sometimes I wonder how many people are talking to me tonight, and whether they're being asked for one harmless little verification photo before meeting.